This morning, we have one of the smartest guys I know in American history and what's going on in Washington. He's the former Speaker, Newt Gingrich. He's a member of Congress, Speaker of the House, presidential candidate, TV commentator, filmmaker, and loves America. Good morning, Newt Gingrich. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great, and it's a remarkable time to be an American. There's just so many things happening that make it the most interesting country in the world.
Tell me, what the heck is going on in Washington?
Well, look, I think the simplest way to think of it is that Donald Trump really is draining the swamp, and the alligators are really unhappy. And then if you think about it for a second, this guy's actually doing what he said he would do. We're getting conservative judges nominated. We're getting regulations rolled back. We're getting a real fight for a tax cut. We're getting a much more aggressive pro-American trade policy and pro-American foreign policy. Well, the other side sees this as the end of their way of life. I mean, he is an enormous threat to them.
Absolutely. How many of our senators and congressmen are on the pharmaceuticals payrolls as far as campaign contributions, having the wives on the payroll of a pharmaceutical company? How can we get anything passed without the pharmaceuticals approval?
Well, I think every once in a while you get a big wave of reform, and I don't know that there are that many, spouses on payrolls, or that's a significant part of this. They do donate a lot of money, but frankly, so do a lot of other people. I mean, I always used to tell people, you can vote your conscience and go find people who agree with you. You don't have to be intimidated into automatically voting one way or another because you're afraid about not being able to raise money. If you don't have a position that a fairly good number of people support, maybe it's the wrong position. But it's a huge country, and so I don't think any one group can dominate as long as people have courage and they're willing to work.
This week, last week, the Pakistanis released 5 American prisoners that were prisoners for 5 years. Do you think that President Trump put his foot down on that deal?
I think the Pakistanis understand how much tougher and how much more aggressive the Trump administration is than the Obama administration. And I think they're trying to find some way to appease us because they know that we're very angry at it. Remember, they had bin Laden in their country for a decade. And no serious person believes that happened without them knowing it. So I think that there's a very deep sense that the Pakistanis have not been playing a straight role, in a deep sense that we ought to be angry at them. And I think as a result, they're scrambling to try to find ways to appease us and to make us like them a little bit more.
What else do you think is an immediate danger? Korea, Turkey, there's a whole bunch of problems.
Look, I think North Korea is the most dangerous thing we have seen since the Cuban Missile Crisis. I really think that the level of danger we have today from the North Korean dictatorship, and as you know, John, because you were there the other night, I've just written a new novel called Vengeance. And in Vengeance, we have the terrorists getting 2 super tankers full of oil and swapping them with the North Koreans for nuclear material, not bombs, but nuclear material that would enable them to go out and create 3 or 4 dirty bombs to try to explode them in American cities. And part of the reason we wrote Vengeance was to get across to people how real these dangers are. I mean, these are very serious problems for us.
Now, that book, and I think I think you're more right than wrong in that deal. I think it's definitely a serious problem. It could happen. When does that book come out, Newt?
It just came out last Tuesday, and it's doing really, really well. And I think people are attracted to it because Vengeance is both an adventure story. It's the 3rd volume in a series where Brooke Grant, who's a U.S. Marine major, plays a major role as trying to hunt down the terrorists. But in addition, I think people are intrigued. We bring up 2 things, and I'm writing a serious article about this for the National Security Council. One, you can talk about we're going to stop their nuclear missiles. Well, there are other delivery systems available than just firing missiles. And sometimes we prepare to stop something, and the other guys figure out a different way to do it. And I think it's very important for us to realize that look at all the possibilities, not just the ones you're the most comfortable with. And then two, we tend to think bilaterally, the United States, North Korea, the United States, Iran. But in fact, there are networks of enemies, so that the North Koreans, for example, have sold at least 19 missiles to the Iranians. We know that they were building a nuclear facility in Syria until the Israelis bombed it. And so you have to start thinking about this network of anti-American forces around the world, how they might collaborate with each other, and what that means for American safety.
Now, there's a whole bunch of talk around about President Trump was talking about the $1.4 billion in cash that the Iranians got when President Obama was president. Where did North Korea get the nukes from?
Well, I think that first of all, they sent students from it. This is a program that's at least 30 years old. We first started negotiating on it in 1954, and it was already a pretty big program in 1954. So it probably goes back over 30 years. And they started with they sent physics students to Russia and to China, and the Russians and the Chinese taught them. I mean, a lot of this technology came straight out of Russia and China, and we have every reason to be not very happy with the Russians and the Chinese because they have dramatically raised the danger for the whole world.
Absolutely correct. Now, in your book Vengeance, you talk about a theoretical scenario with the Koreans and exchanging for atomic bombs, and I mean, it could be a new James Bond movie.
Yeah, I think. In fact, I had somebody yesterday say to me, "So when are the movie rights going to be taken up?" And we would be thrilled if somebody from Hollywood called and said it could also, if you took the series, which started with a book called Duplicity and then went to Treason. Duplicity really is mostly in Somalia, Treason's mostly in Washington, and now this takes place between Korea, Indonesia, in the Pacific, in Panama, and in Vengeance. I mean, you could imagine a series like an HBO series or a Netflix series. There's a lot of action. There's a very, very interesting, complicated story. We're very proud of it. We think it's really pretty remarkable.
And I understand your wife Callista has a new book.
Well, this is one of the fun things. I've been out talking about Remember the Ladies, which is Callista's 7th book for 48-year-olds, in which Ellis the Elephant teaches American history, which she started doing when she realized that our schools just wouldn't teach American history anymore. And ironically, because she has been nominated by President Trump to be the ambassador to the Vatican, she's not allowed to go out and talk about her own book. So I've become her agent, if you will, and we've had a lot of fun with it. She's a little frustrated because you can imagine when you've spent a year writing a book, you want to go talk about it, but we've said no, you're not allowed to. So she has sent me off on her behalf, and it's been a lot of fun. I really must say that she does such a great job for young people. And this one, Remember the Ladies, is about the president's wives, and comes from a line from Abigail Adams, who wrote her husband John Adams when he was writing the Declaration of Independence, and said, "Remember the ladies when you're creating this new country."
And she has been nominated for the Vatican. And when do you think she's be on the job?
She is. She should be voted on next Monday. They had a cloture vote, which was a procedural vote, last week, and she carried the vote 75-20, which was, in this very partisan environment, a really, really good vote. And so she has a real chance, I think, of being confirmed by the Senate, and then she has to go through some paperwork. It takes about 3 weeks to go to Rome, and then it takes about a month to actually see the Holy Father and present him with her credentials. And until she does that, she's an ambassador designated. She doesn't become a real ambassador until the Pope accepts her paperwork.
Now, are you going to be eating a lot of Italian food? Are you going to spend a lot of time in Italy?
It looks like it. I must say, when they first called and said, would she like to be the ambassador, and we looked at each other and thought, gee, would you like to spend 3 years in Rome? It was pretty hard. You couldn't turn it down very easily. I'll be there about 2/3 of the time, and I'll be back home probably twice a month, and a third of the time here. And Fox has very generously agreed to put a studio in Rome so that I could continue to be on Fox even from Rome. So I'll still be around, but I am going to be there. I took a 4-day course on how to be a spouse for an ambassador, and that was quite an experience. And so it's really quite a remarkable thing to do.
Well, I think President Trump needs you around as much as you can spend time with him because, you have a lot of knowledge. You have a lot of knowledge about our country, and you have a lot of knowledge about the world. What else would you like to tell the American public on a Sunday morning?
I think what I really want people to understand is that the turmoil and the confusion is a necessary part of our working our way through who we're going to become. We've done this before as a country. We're the most energetic country in the world, and sometimes it gets very frustrating, and sometimes people, get a little scared. But I think it's very, very important for us that we be engaged as a country in doing everything we can to go out and to solve these problems. And I think people should feel assured that this many free people working together, we'll eventually work our way through it, and we'll remain the most creative, the most prosperous, and the most powerful country in the world. But there are some real fights coming, and as I said, the easy way to think of it is Trump really is draining the swamp, and the alligators really are pretty mad.
Wow. Before we sign off, let's tell the public you can buy your book, and it's called Vengeance on Amazon.
Sure, or BarnesandNoble.com, and you can also get Remember the Ladies at either the major bookstores or at both the websites. And we also, if you go to Gingrich Productions/books, you can actually order autographed copies of both.
No, that's wonderful. Well, Mr. Speaker, thank you for being with us this Sunday morning, and thank you for keeping the American public informed of what's going on.
Well, John, it's always great talking with you, and it's always great being on your radio show.
Thank you.